I want you to know who Elizabeth Sennett is. You probably have not heard the name Elizabeth Sennett. You should know who Elizabeth Sennett is. Elizabeth Sennett died March 18th, 1988. She was the wife of Charles Sennett, a Church of Christ pastor in Sheffield, Alabama. Charles Sennett, her husband, had financial problems and wanted to cash in a life insurance policy. So he hired two men to go to their home and murder his wife. He paid $1,000. Someone was willing to take $1,000 to murder his wife, Elizabeth, and she fought. They invaded the house, and Elizabeth put up a fight. She was stabbed over 15 times. She wasn't shot. It was not quick. She was beaten with the poker from the fireplace and stabbed over 15 times and bled to death. She fought and fought hard, according to the investigator. The investigator said there was blood everywhere. She clearly had put up a struggle. She was beaten with the poker from the fireplace, the cast iron poker, and stabbed over 15 times before she died. She had children. A week later, her husband, when investigators realized it was a murder for hire, her husband ate a bullet and took the coward's way out to avoid the consequences of his actions. Sennett recruited a man named Billy Gray Williams, and Williams recruited a man named Kenneth Smith. They were each paid $1,000 to murder this woman. The state of Alabama has executed Williams. They attempted to execute Kenneth Smith with lethal injection, but they couldn't find a vein to put the needle in. And so now they're going to execute him with nitrogen. When people do assisted suicide, they use nitrogen to kill them. You're going to hear a lot about how Kenneth Smith is a victim, that he's scared, that this is awful, that they're killing him. Kenneth Smith accepted $1,000 to stab a woman to death and beat her with the fireplace poker while she tried to fight him off. He is no victim. He should be executed. When the flood subsided and the ark was on dry land and Noah and his family came out, God reiterated what he had told Adam and Eve: be fruitful and multiply and tend to the planet. And he added something: execute those who would take the life of another. God believed that people who murder others should themselves be executed because they devalue life. And I tend to agree. You shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. And for your lifeblood, I require a reckoning. This is what God says to Noah. The world is restored. And he says, from every beast I will require an end from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. It's actually remarkable that you have this man and his wife and his sons and daughters-in-law, essentially no one on the planet other than these people. And God says, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. And I stand by that. I support the death penalty. Kenneth Smith is not a victim. The victim's name is Elizabeth Sennett. Elizabeth Sennett, he murdered her for $1,000 in 1988. She fought him and he beat her and stabbed her in her own home. Kenneth Smith is going to be executed, and I am fine with it, and you should be too. He is going to be executed with nitrogen because progressives have worked very hard to eliminate every possible means of execution. And it is not a coincidence that as this nation has begun to drift away from the death penalty, that we have devalued life. I think there's a tie-in, and it goes back to that statement in Genesis. God says to kill those who would take the life of another created in the image of God. And this nation and so many Western nations, we have seen a rise in euthanasia. We've seen a rise in abortion. We've seen a rise in violence and a rise in disrespect for human life as all of these nations have decided to get rid of the death penalty. We will protect the murderer and treat them as the victim, and we devalue the actual victims.